they come!
Here it is for you guys. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Thunder. It's Shooter with the Stash.
Is it the mustache? Who knows?
And Thomas Scully. Class is in session. And we are here for the 150th time. Actually have my 100th episode shirt on from Sarah. But we're at 150 now. Got a great guest coming on the show. Dave Randorf for Bally Sports is going to join us. As soon as he hops on here, we'll bring him on. And we've had a pretty good week of Lightning hockey over the last week. So, Stash, I know you watched some of these games. Any thoughts over the last week of Bolts hockey you would like to share with the crowd here?
Good hockey, right? Good things happening. Got back after Schneid at home. Played really well in Dallas. I mean, that was, really great hockey. And then the story of the week now, of course, is the opposite of Anthony Cirelli. The milk carton kid has been found, ladies and gentlemen. The milk carton kid has seen milk cartons do work. Sometimes people are lost and they get put on milk cartons. They disappear. And then sometimes they get found and they reappear. And then lo and behold, Anthony Cirelli. And that line is back. And let me tell you right now, as much as I give Anthony Cirelli credit, it's still Brandon Hagel that's the motor of that line. We talk about Braden Point being the motor of the team. Well, what you've seen the last couple games, that's been Brandon Hagel being the motor. And Killer has had his fair share of great assists and great plays as well. Those three players all together are looking like they're finally starting to gel offensively as well as they have defensively in the past.
Cool.
Yeah,
you went to a couple, well, at least one game. Wasn't here.
Went to the Dallas game. It was great. Their fans, really, really cool fans. Nobody said anything bad to us even after the loss. The fans over there in Dallas were really nice. It's really cool to see some traditions that other arenas do, and having like them chant Dallas Stars when they do the goal, all in unison together. It's really loud. The production that they put on beginning of the game is really cool. They bring down the star from the ceiling and all the guys skate through it when they come out on the ice. It was really fun in Dallas. If you haven't got to go to Dallas, I suggest you go down there.
It can't be a better atmosphere than Amalie Arena, though.
And production-wise, it was a lot better production-wise.
Shots fired.
Production-wise, they put on a great production. I mean, Vegas, I think, puts on the best so far that I've seen. But Dallas puts on a great production going in. Even when they do the Star Spangled Banner, the Dallas Star that they skate through turns red, white, and blue as it's lifting back up into the air. It's a really good production that they have there. And the arena is big. It doesn't sit as much as Amalie does for Lightning games, for Star games, but because it's built for basketball mostly, they have the several tiers that go way up and really steep up there.
What I really want to know is why exactly you seem to be having a better time at a Dallas Stars game than a Tampa Bay Lightning game.
Right.
Because
If
we
you
all got
know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to stall here for a couple
Oh
minutes.
no, don't do it. Don't do it.
Listen,
Uh-oh.
nothing's safe on this show.
Evidently,
Nothing-
what happens in Dallas doesn't stay in Dallas, ladies and
No,
gentlemen.
thanks to Scott Nightingale.
Yes, thanks
Be
to
careful
Scott.
who you travel. Be careful who you travel with, my friend.
This is the
Yeah.
content that people have come to see here.
Right.
Can you see the Facebook post?
Yeah.
I lost you guys. So, all right. Hopefully the audio is working because the audio.
Oh no, you haven't pulled it up on the screen.
Wait, I have not.
No,
No.
I haven't added to the stream yet.
I got it.
Where'd you guys go? Okay. There we go. Oh, it's on there.
I put it on there.
Let me know if you guys can hear it though.
When I took his glass of champagne, I toasted you and said, honey, you did me through. You'll never hear me complain.
Look at this old Dallas boy.
I got friends in those places where the whiskey drowns.
I love that you're thinking about me even when you're on the road. Slowly. I love that. I appreciate that.
Yes.
I'll be okay.
There you go. And to be honest with you, it looked like the woman behind you did want to strangle you. And I don't know how early late in the game this was, but there was some tension there, whether you knew or not.
That I think we were only up 1-0, or maybe it was 1-1 at the time. It was kids' day, so they basically were playing kids' songs all game. So when they actually were playing grown-up songs, it was pretty nice. So that was one of the times they did a grown-up song.
Jesse was not impressed.
It's for the children, Jesse. Jesse, it was for the children.
Yes, it was kids' day. They gave out. I mean, this Tampa has never done this. I mean, we get the same goal getter shirts that we've been getting for the last 3 years. They gave these to everybody. Well, kids. It was supposed to be through at the game the other day. So it was really nice. And we're gonna do an after show on here. And I got a little story to tell about the free swag Scott gave. So come join the after show. I'll tell you about that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. So if you didn't catch that, we decided, since we're 150 years old now, or episodes old now, that we're just going to add more ridiculous content to the show. You probably heard us mention once or twice on this show, if you're a regular listener, how we end up talking after the show for, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. So over on YouTube, Shooter in the Stashes YouTube, from here on out, we will be live after the show or the after show, and anything goes on YouTube. On Facebook, they limit like what we can do. So on YouTube, apparently almost anything goes. So anyway, check us out after the show on the first after show on YouTube. We might not even be wearing shirts for that show. Depends how this one goes.
It's true. You never know.
All right, let's break down these games. We'll get back to that Dallas game. We had a couple more in between or before the Dallas game.
Yeah, came off the All-Star break. I was gonna not really acknowledge that, but I guess we could go back and talk about the back-to-backs coming out of the All-Star break.
Well, we got to talk about that San Jose game, because last time we went live, it was a post-game show after a kind of frustrating loss, crazy loss to the Panthers. You knew the Lightning weren't going to bounce back for San Jose. The Sharks came to town, and Moose was in net, point with the 2 early goals, and the Lightning lost the lead and lost the game in overtime. So San Jose kind of came back to tie it. It was Stamkos' birthday. Stamkos had that goal, but it was offsides. It definitely was offsides. It was overturned. And that was kind of a turning point in this game. It seemed like everything after that was all in favor of San Jose until that overtime, and the Sharks, almost didn't even give up possession in that overtime.
Yeah.
And I tweeted out, we got to remember, we just had back-to-back games. They hadn't played in 8 or 9 days, and that had to have contributed to them just kind of getting beat up in that overtime. They just couldn't even get the puck. So 12-game home win streak snapped by the Sharks.
Of all teams.
I don't know. Was that a worse loss than the night before when we just kind of got stomped by Florida?
I mean, what? That was 4 unanswered goals from them, right? Because the Lightning were 3-0. The Lightning were 3-0. They gave up 4 unanswered goals to lose at home. I think that's even on a back-to-back.
I think it was 2.
Yes, it was.
No, it was 3-0, and they gave up 4 unanswered goals. Yeah. So, I still think you guys are wrong on that. I feel like they scored right away.
No.
He scored 1 early goal, and they came back and scored 1 right away. But maybe I'm wrong.
You are.
Slept at least 6 times.
Go to the. Yeah, I've had a long. Oh, you know what? You're right.
Oh, shoot!
Carlson did. Carlson did.
We actually have a sound clip for that.
He had the power play goal.
Hold on. You got to shut up while I play a sound effect of your voice.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stash. Say it again.
That's a very good point.
What was that?
That's a very good point.
All right, I'll stop now because
but
we
then
know
they did come back, and
I'm not on Cooper.
Braden scored the 2 goals after that in the first period, though. So they came out 3-1 in the first period. That's right. And then they gave up 3 unanswered goals. Still unimpressive at home. Yeah, even coming on a back-to-back, you were still only down in Florida coming off of vacation. I can understand kind of getting booted down there because, we talked about it. I tried to block that whole game out. But anyways.
And Moose in net for that one.
Yeah. And he had one of his not as good games either. So, but yeah, luckily, only 2 nights until the next game. And that was Colorado. And that was a much different scenario. And
coming to that, you had no Makar, and you had who was out for the ball? Paul. Was that when his first game out?
11-7 for the Lightning.
You had no Paul in for the Bolts.
And Foote was on the roster.
Yeah. Which ended up being the same roster that went to Dallas.
Correct. And it's probably on the road now.
What happened in that game versus Colorado? 5 goals. Hagel went off. Perry got in on the action. Point scores seems like every game. And then, of course, my guy, Sergachev, with the seeing eye puck shot. You guys know what that means? Someone's asking what that means on Twitter. A seeing eye shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that's got it's like a just finds its way through traffic. Like it has eyes of its own. As if it has eyes of its own and just weaves its way through the commotion and finds the twine.
I don't know if there's anyone better on our roster than Sergachev at those long goals that just find a way to go in. Although Rubik's kind of has a knack for it.
Ian Cole, I was just say Ian Cole, most of his goals have been from up there at the blue line this year. He has a couple of deflections, but most of them have been from up there as well. So, but no, you're right. He definitely has a thing for that. But that was the start of also Sorelli and Killorn and Hagel really having a big night. Sorelli and Killorn on the power play assist with Perry. And I think we talked about before. I mean, we saw that second power play unit go out there and be a lot more effective than the top one. And they, scored that goal. And I think that kind of kickstarted that third line because, Hagel went off and Killorn was involved in a lot of goal scoring that night as well.
Yeah. Nice pass to Hagel on at least one of those 2 goals. Where he had a pretty good look on net, but Hagel's just been getting better and better, it seems like. And
new career record.
now that he's on this other line and he's still producing, it's like, hey, we've got a gem on this team. And I don't know, sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, and real quick before we get our guest on here, since he just showed up in the green room, it's funny, we talked about this line and people kind of like, oh, we were kind of critical of that line, and we needed those guys to kind of start stepping up. And lo and behold, since our last show, that line's really been on fire and kind of leading the offense. So yeah, it's good to see those guys finally finding their gel offensively as well as they have defensively, like I said earlier.
And then to quickly recap the last game before we get to what everybody's here to see, and that's Dave Randorf. The Dallas Stars game, you had Cirelli absolutely sprung out of a jet, scored 2 goals, Hagel with the 3rd goal. That second goal by Cirelli, last minute of the game. Being there in Dallas, it totally got the crowd very, very quiet. And then that empty net goal by Hagel right as time was expiring. Great being in Dallas, great game. That Paul was also out for that one. Coop did say that he possibly returns in Colorado. So we'll see tomorrow if he returns, or maybe Dave might have some of that.
Yeah. So Cirelli, big game, obviously, the 2 goals in that game and the one in the final minute there. So when that happened, did you kind of get the sense, and did Dallas fans get a sense that was it? That was.
Oh yeah. And it was weird because really Vasi kept them in that game. That second period, I really thought Vasi. There were several times that Dallas looked to take the lead, and you heard a couple off the post. And Dallas fans were really getting into it, especially being Kids Day with all those kids there. You really had them excited. And then the Cirelli scores in that last minute, and you could just see these kids all like, what just happened? And like, it's sad because with a day that it is for kids, you kind of want their home team to win. But being a visitor, I'm like, let's go, and like, take that, you little brat, as soon as and take your kids.
See,
these kids.
I get in trouble for interacting with adult Boston fans. Okay, and here he is rubbing it in the face of children on the road on Kids Day, and he's Thomas Schooley.
Adrian was there with us. Adrian was there with us. Tampa taught them disappointment.
I'm all about it.
I don't know, but I loved that Victor Hedman, one of the biggest attempts for a wraparound that you will ever see, as he's trying to wrap that thing in. And thank goodness Cirelli's stick is just somehow right there for it to bounce off of an end. And beautiful.
Not somehow. You got to give him credit because he worked hard and got to the net there, and he won that battle, and his stick was there, and he made the play. And those are
Cirelli goals.
That's what we need, right? And that's what we're talking about.
Cirelli missing kind of like maybe on a breakaway, a 2-on-1, and he's been off. He got the breakaway. Right. Those are Cirelli goals that we saw against
from
Dallas.
that line too. Hedman was involved, but Killorn involved as a head assist, and Hagel had a great night as well. Again, the motor of that line. So yeah, as long as that line keeps playing that way, and Braden Point keeps doing what he does. I mean, he's got what a 1-game goal drought. What a slump for him. I think this team will be fine going down the stretch here with 30 games left here in the regular season.
They play the radio broadcast in the bathroom just like they do at Amalie. And after the game, I stopped in there, and their announcer, their radio guy, I thought said it best, that Lightning either strikes cloud to cloud or cloud to ground. And he said for the first 2 periods, the Tampa Bay Lightning was cloud to cloud. In the third period, they were cloud to ground, and they really took the Stars. And I said, that was a great analogy from their radio guy there. I was like, I never even thought of something like that. And he had it just off the top of his and pulled right out with it.
Let's ask a pro how long he was doing on that one before, because they don't play the Lightning too often, and I think he was thinking about that one. So talking about excellence in announcing, we've got him on the show. And
What a segue.
listen, I know what you all are thinking. I miss him because we've been dealing with these ESPN broadcasts all week, or at least the last 2 games, right? So I'm just like, where's Dave? So guess what? We got Dave Randorf back on We the Thunder. Dave, let me give you a lightning strike.
Let's go.
It's a long one. Go ahead.
That's great. Gentlemen, good to be back with you guys. Shooter, Schoolie. Can I talk to the scat? Can I go right to the stash here just for a second? Just for one moment?
Please.
Stash.
Yes, sir.
That Stamkos jersey behind your left shoulder, draped over the furniture in your bachelor pad there.
Yes, sir.
Is that a Lightning, some kind of retro thing, or is that a Markham Waxers jersey?
No, it's a retro Lightning hoodie, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's got the heavy band down below and on the arms, and I don't remember seeing a jersey like that. But I'm from Markham.
Yeah.
And that looks like a
that
Markham
style
Waxers jersey. My sons all played for the Waxers, just like Stammer did.
It's that style. It just has it's almost like an authentic old school sweater, not like a hoodie. It's like an actual like what they used to play in, not an athletic gear, but like a sweater with a hood on it and his number and name. Yeah. But no.
Well, fair enough. Now, if you really want to elevate,
I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, I appreciate
that's okay.
the
But if you really want to elevate your collection, try to find a Markham Waxers jersey. That's where it all began.
Right. My wife pointed out an empty spot on my wall as I was rearranging earlier. So, all right. I know I've got my eye out.
Well, I just love you guys. You could all have a very different look in your man caves. Everybody's got a different look happening, and this is the Ritz-Carlton here in Denver, so there's nothing going on here.
Poor you.
I'm just saying that there's no man cave look like you guys.
You couldn't tell that this was the Ritz-Carlton Sarasota that I'm in right now.
Yeah, they often hang seen Cirelli signs in the hotels I go to. Yes,
I'm in the Ritz Cracker suite here.
You're in the Ritz Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
All right. Don't disclose your locations, guys. It's like the Bat Cave. You need to keep that on the down low.
Oh, for sure. The stash cave
be
is
happy
definitely.
We're all in our spots because sometimes we're not on the show. The beauty of being able to do the show from anywhere thanks to modern technology.
Indeed.
But like I mentioned, Dave, you were not on these broadcasts the last 2 games, right? So we had ESPN, which, if you're on Twitter, the Lightning fans do not like ESPN very much. This broadcast apparently just only goes for the other team whenever we play, which I argue with them all the time that they go with pretty much whatever team's playing better. So we missed you the last 2 games. Would love to get your thoughts. Well, first of all, here's a good question. Do you watch the games? You get a couple days off.
He was in the stands for the Colorado game. He tweeted a picture of him sitting in the stands for the Colorado game.
Of course, I watch I'm just like you guys. I watch every minute of every game. And as was pointed out, I was sitting in the stands with my wife on Thursday for the Colorado game. I hate missing games like that because you just knew that was going to be a big one. And they played very well. But, it is what it is. From my standpoint, it is what it is. You guys probably know this. I was on the other side before I came here to Tampa Bay. I was on the national side, so and I was the guy swooping in, and so I get it. So it is what it is. But as for the Dallas game, of course, I was sitting there on my couch at home again with my wife and our cat Lewis, and we watched the whole game. And as impressive as the Colorado game was, I think the win against Dallas was even a little bit more impressive. I think Colorado. They were on a road trip. They were starting to feel the fatigue of the trip and all, and they're just getting guys back. They're without Makar, and once the Lightning got 2 goals, then now they need 3, and then they need 4 against Bally, and it's over. As for the Dallas game, that went right down to the wire in Dallas. For whatever reason, I've watched a lot of Stars games this year. They're a very good team. They're very structured. They're very good at home. They've got a great crowd there, and they feed off of it just like the Lightning do. And for the Lightning to come out of there with the 2 points that they did and not sharing any points with Dallas was impressive. 2 back-to-back great wins. for the Lightning against Western Conference opponents, which are always kind of a different challenge because you just don't see these teams very much. They know all about them. They know who's there and who's on the other side. But, I'm sure John Cooper and the coaching staff will say we don't spend a lot of time breaking down the Western Conference teams. We just don't. We spend more time on our own division and our own conference because those points are more valuable. Not to say they don't do any prep work going into them. But anyway, having said that, I heard you guys talking about Cirelli, and I agree. He was overdue to have some big games, and he's such a gamer and such an important piece of this puzzle. You just knew it was coming. For a guy to miss as much time as he did and come back from a shoulder surgery, which was all healed, it still takes a lot of time to jump on that moving train. Guys are like a month and a half into it, and the whole league's going 100 miles an hour, and you're only doing about 70. There was a you guys know the comedian Stephen Wright?
Yeah.
The deadpan comedian who just does one-liners. I just thought of this line now that a line that makes me laugh. This is his line. He goes, "So I just bought a house. I got a great deal on it. It's on the island of a freeway. The bad news, I got to back out of my driveway doing 60 miles an hour." So that's what Cirelli's trying to do. He's trying to jump into this whole thing while everybody's going 100 miles an hour, and he's not. And it takes a while. And that's exactly what's taking place. But to have back-to-back multi-point games and be front and center on this impressive win against Dallas was great for him, and I'm sure will boost his confidence a little bit.
And
more.
a new line for him, new line mates, line that he hadn't played on before coming into this season.
Yeah, and they did a great job. That line was obviously a key job and did a key job in shutting down McKinnon and Rantanen and those guys in the Colorado win. And it will be interesting to see. I noticed that Hagel – today, I wasn't at the practice today in Dallas, guys. I joined the team here today in Denver. But I read that Hagel was back up on the top line with Point and Kucherov, which was interesting because John Cooper's always trying to stay one or two steps ahead. And I think this is probably a road matchup thing. He knows that they're going to try to get their checking line out against Point and Kucherov. And that shift to get Hagel onto that line will probably open up a little bit more for Point and Kucherov than Stamkos would be able to. I think that's fair to say. That's
absolutely.
Not criticism of Stammer.
No.
But it's a fact. He's a forechecker. He's a takeaway guy. He's more of he's a relentless dog and a bone type player, where Stamkos is not that right now. And so I think that's maybe what you'll see tomorrow night. We'll have to wait and see.
And if we go by earlier.
Is John Cooper ever really done putting the lines together? Like we've seen all season, he's been shifting. We've seen it the last couple of years. Eventually, by the playoffs, he usually kind of settles on a line unless he needs to change things up. But do you think we're going to see him find the right line combinations, or do you think it's going to be kind of like what you're talking about? It's going to be based on matchups that they see for the upcoming games and playoff series eventually?
Well, you guys have seen this more up close and game in, game out longer than I have. This is my third season, so I can only go with what I know, what I've seen up close. And he likes to tinker, whether it's because the team's not going on any given night. He's not going to wait. He gets the blender out because he's always grinding with that team. He wants to get a point out of every game, whether it's one or two. And so he will go to the blender if he has to try to generate anything, to try to get any kind of positive traction to turn things around. Or I think in this case, he likes to just experiment a little bit, just a little bit, to know what he's got when he might need it when it's most important, and that is in the playoffs. So I think once the playoffs hit, I generally believe that if I remember correctly, for the last two cup runs, the lines have pretty much stayed the same, or at least the signature lines have stayed the same. When you think of that one line of Gord and Coleman and Goodrow, that one stayed. That nobody was touching that one. Last year, the school bus line, that one stayed the same all year long. It has not been attacked this year because of different reasons. But I think that he likes this ability to switch Hagel in and out of the top line to the second line, move Stammer off the wing into maybe center or onto the wing with Cirelli, and move Paul down. Because when you talk about Point and Cirelli and Paul at center ice, That's very good depth. And don't discount the fact that they may not be done adding to this team. I don't know exactly how that's going to happen with very little salary cap room, but Julian Brisebois has done it before, and I know he's looking at it again. I'm quite certain that would be the case with the trade deadline just a few weeks away. So in answer to your question, I think he just likes to experiment a little bit, not in a careless kind of way, in a let's see what we got when we might need it kind of way. And then you'll ask him about it later, and he'll say, yeah, well, they played together before. Or the guys will say, yeah, we played together before. You don't want to put guys together in a playoff series when they have not played together. Players, even if it was back in November, they can draw upon that. They will remember that. They will just remember the chemistry and the tendencies that exist in each other's games when it matters the most, when every little mistake is exploited. And if you don't have chemistry on your lines, that can cost you a goal, and that could be the ball game right there. So I think that's why he does what he does.
And looking in at Dave's colleague Gabby's lines from today, Paul is going to be in tomorrow, and he'll be on the line with Colton and Maroon. Tomorrow on the third line. Yeah. So it looks like Paul.
And that's good news, tomorrow. Right?
Yeah, and we've seen Stamkos on that top line already when Cirelli was out earlier in the season, and they were electric. And I mean, they already know what they are all about, and that's the great thing. Like we talk about with Cooper, we had Eric Erlandson on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this. And you know, I'm still kind of that old school guy who thinks about lines in threes. And he was telling me, hey, these days coaches look almost more in pairs than in threes.
Yeah.
And, I'm old school. So, and I guess it's just like my nostalgia, and I like to be able to know who I'm rooting for. And I know those lines, you know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, I totally get what he does. And so the fact that we have seen already the effectiveness of Stamkos on the top line with those guys, we know that. And then having Hagel, come down or go up to that line, we've also seen that as well. And so we know what we're getting in that second line, because Stamkos, Cirelli, and Killorn have played how many games together?
Yeah.
Right. And that's and to me, I think if they can get back to that being their second line and those guys producing, and then Hagel's on the top line and Paul can help the third line and Colton find his way, that to me is really a key to success going into the playoffs for Cooper. And if he can swap that top six, kind of interchange whoever's going to be, on the wing of those two pairs, per se, like Killorn and Cirelli and Kucherov and Point. I mean, you're almost coming in with a stacked deck, really. Even with the supposed lack of depth, I still think you're looking pretty confident to me.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Hagel has become such an important piece in such a short amount of time. I think that everybody watching this podcast who watches the games night in, night out would agree that he didn't play poorly last year when he was acquired just before the trade deadline. But he even admitted, and I've spoken to him about it personally, he was finding his way in that room on and off the ice. Just, when you get traded, it's a whirlwind. And you walk into that room in particular, you just want to do the right thing and find your role. And he'd come from Chicago, where he was more of an offensive guy playing with Patrick Kane. Now he comes here with, we don't need you to score every night here, Brandon. We need you to do this. So he's much more comfortable in his role. He's much more comfortable in his life on and off the ice, which is a key component as well to getting comfortable. And now here he is. He is going to hit career highs again in goals and points. He's leading the team in plus minus. He's amongst the league leaders in takeaways. He plays the penalty kill. He plays the power play. Remember a year ago when everybody was making their trade bait deadline, boards of who the top targets were. And a lot of people were saying, Brandon Hagel. And a lot of people didn't know a whole lot about him. And now here we are a year later, and now we know exactly why all that talk was the way it was, because he's become such an important part. And people forget he was a 6th round pick by the Buffalo Sabres that they just let walk away.
Yeah.
He didn't fit in with them, and they shook his hand, said, we best of luck. Go make yourself an NHL. And that's exactly what he's done. He's a self-made guy. He's a self-starter, and his motor's always running. And I was updating my stats today. He's got, I don't know, 29 points in the last 31 games or something like that. The points are there. And keep in mind, whether he's playing on that second line or that first line, it is not easy to be dropped into a line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, two of the best players in the National Hockey League. Yeah. I know he's had experience with Kane, and that helps, but it's not easy to just jump into that situation that's been occupied for so long by Andre Palat. But he's done it, and he's become such an important piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, I think his size goes a little bit unnoticed and underrated because he is just a little bit bigger than Braden Point. Yeah. And Braden Point plays a fierce game. He plays physical. I think that actually is an underrated part of his game, is how physical he plays, even for his small size. But Brandon Hagel is 2-3 inches taller than him, and like a bigger frame, and a little bit more of a prototypical hockey player, size wise than Braden Point is. But he, to me, has almost all the same skills, and to me that's what is really in a different way. I mean, I don't think he has the same playmaking ability per se, but he has similar speed. He has the ability to handle the puck in tight areas.
Yes.
But he has a nose for the puck, especially down on the boards. And that frees up Point to not necessarily be doing those things. Like you said, Stamkos doesn't really do. And we know where Kucherov lives, right? So not that he doesn't do his work, but, we know where Kucherov's office is. So you're right. When you put Hagel up on that line with those two, it allows those guys to be more dynamic. And then he knows the places to be. To cash in on how dynamic they are, whether it is to make the pass or to finish on their brilliant playmaking ability.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I like what you said, Dave. Like, he's just become this all-around player that can do anything. Plus, like, the goals are going in right now. And to me, I saw it last year. It was just he wasn't finishing on those goals, and he's finishing on them this year.
Yeah, he certainly is. But, you go up and down this roster, and there's a lot of positives to talk about. Ross Colton's back at double digits. I really like Ross Colton's game the last 2-3 weeks, playing hard. He's the leading forward amongst Lightning players with hits. He's very physical. There's another guy that punches above his weight. He's not small, but he's stocky, and he can be a factor on the forecheck as well. Pat Maroon has been very physical of late as well, and he knows he's upwards of, he's north of 30. He's not getting any faster. Never was the fastest guy, but he's playing smart now. And he's doing that grind and possess game and being and laying the body when he needs to, away from that school bus line that he made a name for himself for as far as the Lightning go last year. You know what? There's just lots of positive. Ian Cole's been a great addition. Nick Perbix, I mean, come on. What a surprise that has been. I'm sure they would like a little bit more depth defensively, but Perbix looks like a guy who's going to be here for a long time.
I agree.
And he's just steady Eddie. Looks like he's been in the league 2 or 3 years already, and he just doesn't get phased. And he told me about 2 weeks ago when I had a conversation about hitting the halfway mark of his first year in the NHL. He said, I just came into the philosophy to play hard and simple. And isn't that a perfect way to describe what you've seen from Nick Perbix?
And it really seems like he's doing the same path almost like Sergachev did. And we've talked about this on the show. And that Perbix has came out and said that he has learned a lot from Sergachev, being that they basically had the same path, except for Perbix being the same age as him, decided to go from college. Sergachev came from Windsor and made the commitment and said, I will not go back to Windsor. I'm going to make this team. And he got the tryout and did it. Now, Perbix, he's been in some of the development camp the last couple of years, but literally came in this season and was
make no mistake, Bob. I don't want to interrupt you. Make no mistake. This was a surprise.
Yeah.
There was no real talk going into camp. And I was at all those workouts we think Nick Perbix is going to make the jump. No, this was a complete pleasant surprise for the Lightning that he had, were they completely shocked? Probably not, because they saw him coming up, but he was a 4-year guy at St. Cloud. But the major difference between he and Sergachev, one's a first round pick, the other one's a 6th round pick. Mm-hmm. But Perbix is not a kid. He's 24, and he's just got that mentality, that even keel, not phased mentality. So, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but it was a surprise. It kind of threw, because remember, they signed Fleury. They still had Cal Foote, and now those guys are spare parts.
I do want to give Thomas his flowers a little bit, though, because he was the guy when we do our preseason show. That's the guy that Thomas was talking about, was Perbix.
Was he?
We couldn't get him to shut up about Perbix, in fact. I'm not going to lie. We could not get him to shut up
All
about
right,
Perbix.
then.
Perbix has always been – Perbix, I really thought could have made this team last year, but we had McDonough. We didn't really have spots with him because they were still doing the foot experiment that looks like they've kind of given up on this season. And
recently,
he's came in these last 2 games. But
can I point out a couple? He made a couple of great plays in the Dallas game.
Oh, he did real good in Dallas.
He broke up a 2-on-1, and he stopped. He had a quick stick on there. They tried to spring. It was late in the game. Dallas been what would have been a breakaway pass to, I forget who it was, Ben or Sagan or whoever, and it was foot stick that broke it up. So he made. I noted them both, thinking, good for you, because he's probably, his confidence is probably not high, and for him to come in like that situation was good. So he's a great person, as is Hayden Fleury. They're all good people, but this is the big leagues, and the numbers game.
Do players hear that? Because like we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen the rumors that, possible Shen coming back to Tampa from Vancouver, and Foote going to be traded. We had Eric Erelson on here a couple weeks ago, and he said really they've been trying to trade him for the last year and a half, and really haven't had any takers for Foote. Do the players see that? Do they hear the rumblings going on? And
yes,
do you think that we're gonna make some trades here at the deadline, even with no salary? I mean, someone like Names Nemesnikov looks like they could possibly be on the trade block because of the $2.5 million that he's garnishing.
Yeah. First, the answer to your first question, yes, these guys hear it. They've got agents. The agents hear it, and the agents keep them, abreast. A lot of guys would like to know what's going on. Tell me. Give me a heads up. They don't want to be surprised. And in this day and age of social media and everything else, a lot of guys say they shut it off, and probably a lot of guys do. Not all of them do. And they certainly hear it. They're probably aside from the Twitter and the social media thing, they're probably informed by their agents. As for, do I think they're going to make a move? I only say this on the precedent that has been set. And the precedent that has been set says yes. And I do know it's going to have to be a contract in, contract out situation. It might be a 2-for-1 deal. You've got to find a dance partner who is willing to take salary. A team that maybe has an asset that has room and has cap space to burn. That can be an asset as well. So I've got only so much space in my tiny brain so I stay away from this part of it. But I do know that is the math. It's going to be a contract in, contract out situation for these.
Here's maybe the
but
better.
I do think, sorry, Shooter. I'm just going to say that yes. Are they actively the Lightning feel the window still is wide open, and they are still one of the top teams in the NHL. The last 2 games are a perfect example of where they end the win against Boston, the win against Minnesota, previous to that, and LA for that matter. They're right there, boys, and they think they can make another deep run. So if they can roll the dice and make an acquisition now, and they don't have many picks to trade anymore, they don't have a lot of assets to give up anymore, but if they can make something happen to bolster their chances, they're going to do it. They're not waiting around for next year. This is now another crucial year in the year of Stamkos, Hedman, Kucherov, Vasi. These years, you don't get them back. And the time is now.
Well, and you're lucky. You're lucky to get some of those Stamkos years back right now. Like, you know what I mean? It's a rarity to see a player come back and be producing at this stage of his career at the way he is, and showing no signs of slowing down. So what were you going to say, Shooter?
I was going to ask, can the Lightning afford to not make a move as we see the Eastern Conference teams all, bulking up, getting some of these guys that are really good players into the East, which is already a really strong conference.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more piggyback off of that, it's like is trading someone like a Mestikov, like the only guy that really has any salary that would be able to bring someone in. Is it an improvement? Are they going to be able to actually improve this roster, moving someone like that, or with a Foot and a Fleury moving in that kind of salary situation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a player out there that they think really, or you think that really could come in and bolster the top 9, really? Because that's what they're looking for, right?
I was watching NHL Network today. They were throwing Tyler Bertuzzi's name out there. But I don't want to get into names and who's out there and who's not, because I will say this. You've got to be careful. It's got to be a fit. You don't want to upset chemistry. You don't want to upset roles. You've got to be sure if you're going to move somebody out, bring somebody in, you have to be certain that this is going to fit and it's not just going to go wrong, because there are all kinds of examples over the last 20 years in the National Hockey League where this big splash move was made and it just blew up in their faces, and the team was beaten in the first round and the guy didn't fit in, couldn't get it going for whatever reason. Call it chemistry, call it fit, call it just the whole situation didn't work.
Call it the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, and I remember,
look, and whether it's done at a deadline or whether it's done in the off season, look at Florida.
Right. Yeah.
Look at all the changes they made. Look at Calgary.
Yep.
I mean, the trading partner essentially bringing in Uyghur and Huberdeau. I think we can objectively say, as this, I know this is a Lightning podcast here, but I think we can objectively say Huberdeau is a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's not come close to that in Calgary. He hasn't fit in. Daryl Sutter, coach, different situation, the whole thing. And people in Calgary going, hello. I went on lots of radio shows in Calgary saying, you probably have not seen enough of Jonathan Huberdeau. You don't know how good he is. You're going to love him.
Just give it a little bit. Yeah.
But so far, it's going to have to wait till next year, to tell you the truth, at this point. But what I'm saying is, you think of the moves they've made, and it's been strokes of genius, really.
And they don't.
Goodrow, Coleman, they do not. I think I probably said this before in your thing. It's probably been said before by you guys. I firmly believe they don't win those cups without that line.
Oh, nope.
Their fingerprints are all over both of those cups.
Absolutely. I think they're still over this team. They're still over this team, right? Like it showed them how to build a championship team going into the playoffs, and they're still trying to not necessarily completely clone that, because you've heard both Breezeball and Cooper say it's every season's different. So you're not really trying to clone exactly what you did. You're trying to learn from it and then tweak it and try and make it work the next go around. And so it's one thing they very rarely do is you're going to see Breezeball bring in a rental player. If it wasn't for the way things went down in the salary cap and everything else, I think Blake Coleman would still be here. I don't think you're able to keep Goudreau and both of them here, because who knew Goudreau would have such an amazing year and command such a huge price tag. But I do think that Blake Coleman was on their radar of a guy that they wanted to keep, and he would be a very much like a Brandon Hagel type player for this team, I think if they bring someone in, it's not going to be someone just for this season. It's going to be someone that look to actually help carry open that window with like a Hagel and like a Paul, who they could come in and sign.
Paul, they had to resign. Hagel was already committed.
Well, exactly. But something that they have an idea of, hey, it's either we can sign or this is a person that we can go forward, and it's not necessarily because Hagel, Paul was an extension anyways, right? So he wasn't just like a 1-year guy. We knew we had him this year too. It wasn't just for the playoffs last year. So that I don't think you're going to see JBB trade assets for a rental. You're going to see him trade for somebody that he thinks can be him and Al and the gang do their job in scouting. Think that come in and can help maintain this window and door that's wide open.
You talking about Al Murray?
Yeah.
Al Murray's more the amateur side.
Yeah.
Jamie Pusher is the pro scout side.
Okay.
Just to be clear, let's give credit where credit's due, because I think the pro scout. Well, Al Murray, I've known Al for many years, going back to Hockey Canada days and stuff. But to me, pro scouting is a fascinating business. These guys watch games either live or on television, and they compile this huge database on each guy, shift by shift, moment by moment, situation by situation. They drill it all down and they put it in a big pot and they boil it down into this, this database. And then I'm sure they go into a room, they have their scouting meetings, and when a trade deadline comes, or as it approaches, the general manager, in this case Julian, will say, give me your top 5 to 6 guys who do exactly this. And that's when they look at their data that they've compiled on all these guys. That, right now I read an article the other day about how Sam Lafferty in Chicago is a guy that you should consider, and here's why. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. Sam Lafferty. I mean, come on, he's a depth player, but who knows? Maybe some pro scouts have started to see little tendencies and little game-changing tendencies that you can utilize in the postseason. So I just find that part of the process fascinating, which is really what Barclay Goodrow is about and what Blake Coleman was about. They paid a premium, but they knew, based on their research and their firsthand scouting, they knew what these guys would deliver. And it goes beyond on the ice. It goes on who the person is and how he's going to fit in that room.
And that's one of the things I like Twitter nowadays towards the trade deadline, because everybody tweets out what scouts are at this game. You'll see the scouts from this team is here at our game.
Scouts are at all the games. It's not just like 2 weeks before the trade deadline. I see those tweets all the time and I kind of roll my eyes. They're always there. It's not just this. It's not like a month before trade deadline or anything like that. It's interesting to see for fans, but just whenever you see one of those lists, know that they're always there, traveling around the league, and GMs as well. And they may not mean anything other than the fact that GMs was in Minnesota to see one of their top prospects play for the Gophers or Minnesota State or something like that. And then Wild happened to be playing, and he's going to go to the game just because he's going to get his eyes on somebody live. I'm not saying there's nothing to it, but it happens way more than just those 2 weeks before trade deadline lists of who's at the game.
Don't shatter my dreams now, Dave.
I'm just giving you the facts. You bring me on to give you the facts, and that's the deal.
That's why that's why we bring the pros on. He corrects me on my staff responsibilities, and he's letting Scully know the way it goes.
Just trying to help, Stash.
That's why I'm all about it. That's why we have you on, Dave.
When I see the scouts at New Jersey, I'm thinking that they're bringing Palat back or something. Now stop crushing my dreams here. No, I know Palat's too expensive. They ain't no chance.
You got to look at the scratches this time of year. Somebody gets scratched. Everyone's just like, oh my gosh, where's he getting traded to?
No, that's a real thing. I mean, the Arizona Coyotes come right out and said, Jacob Chikrin's not playing again until something happens.
Yeah.
So, they're not.
Yeah, they actually named it. I think like the tweet said something about
the Kings. The Kings actually put out a tweet saying that they had traded for him, and then they deleted the tweet, but it was already screen grabbed. But supposedly they did not want to interrupt Brown's retirement night the other night. So that was why it did not get announced. But
I didn't catch that.
It was expected to be announced by tomorrow. It was supposed to be announced by tomorrow. From what I hear, that it would be announced sometime before the game on Tuesday. But the Kings did tweet out that they had gotten him for I forget who it was.
Well, it's not going to be Brant Clark, because Brant Clark, I read that the young first-round pick played for Canada, the World Juniors, played the first 8 or 9 games this season in the NHL. He's been told he's not going anywhere.
No, it was let me look at the roster real quick. It was something that started with a B.
BBB. I don't know.
Are you sure it's not Toronto? Because I think these Maple Leafs fans are going to lose their mind if they don't.
No, it definitely wasn't Toronto.
Yeah, I was gonna what else is new? Is it not a regular day of the week? Did the sun not rise as normal?
Well, I'll tell you right now. I was just up in Toronto during the week that we had off, and I was up there visiting my family and friends and freezing my butt off. And they're already stressing about the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No shit.
It was Byfield. They traded Byfield
for
yes.
Chikrin?
Yes, and some draft picks. It was the tweet that came out from the Kings.
Too soon, though.
Dude,
Premature tweeting.
Listen, and I also don't understand. I mean, if you're in the market or in the race for number 1 pick next year, why would you be trading away talent like that? You know what I'm saying? That's what I don't understand. Like, at least wait till next season.
Bedard.
You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean? I don't follow what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you're
not
trying
getting any better by trading Chikrin away.
No, but I mean, you're gonna have nothing whenever you bring in a great player like Bedard. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just
if you're in this case to add Byfield up front.
Yeah. I mean I don't know. It's just, to me, like, the whole trading or tanking for me, I don't know. Although according to the illustrious commissioner, teams do not tank in an NHL. So
the players and coaches don't tank. What happens?
There you go.
I'm just looking at the situation of Austin Matthews. The Leafs didn't give him a chance to tank. They just stripped it right down.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and look at their roster for the last 2 months of the season, they shut everybody. Everything was shut down, and it was a big mess to begin with there in Toronto. But there's an example where they just hit rock bottom and it worked, and they got Matthews, which changed everything for them.
Yeah, they keep losing in the first round. It changed everything.
Yeah, for now, yes.
Now, Dave, as long as they have to keep playing the Lightning, I don't think it's going to change. I'm just gonna go out there and say that, because right now I just think they're in their heads. I really do.
I was just going to say they are in their heads.
There's a mental aspect to it when it comes to it. Like, you got to, if you're in Toronto and you want to get out of the first round, the motto's got to be anybody but the Lightning. Like, I don't understand why you're in second place. If it's me, I'm tanking for a wild card spot. If I'm Toronto, like, let's maybe get a chance to surprise Boston in the first round, because like, who knows? They could be the Lightning in 19 or whatever. Like, I would be trying to play anybody but the Lightning if I was the Leafs. That's just,
well, a lot of teams can't match the Lightning for their experience and their just gamesmanship and their ability to will impose their will on you. But the main 2 numbers are 88. A lot of teams just can't deal with that.
Yeah,
and can't match that. That's the Leafs included. So that's
when it matters.
That's the guy.
And he seems to be getting better throughout the season, getting his first shutout this past week, and only letting up one in Dallas. And as we talked about, Dallas is a good team, and they're playing good recently, and they played good on Sunday too, or Saturday too. So it's good to see the Big Cat getting back into the swing of things just in time when we need him to really heat up.
Well, yeah,
what do you
I would
think
say
about?
that he's been poor.
No.
I mean,
no.
I said this
just not top level, top shelf.
Yeah, I mean, his numbers don't jump off the page. His goals against and save percentage don't, and he's on nobody's business.
He's like top 10 instead of top 3 right now. He's normally top 3.
His wins are right there.
Well, right.
But it's ridiculous to think that a goalie of that caliber has had, up until the other night, had 2 shutouts the last 2 seasons, and both of them were last year. So now you got 3, and you guys know this. Hey. The Lightning have pissed away a lot of his shutouts in the last 4 or 5 minutes. There's no what game was it where he broke his stick and threw it at the bench?
At the bench, yes. Oh, it's been habitual this season. But I will say, Dave, I will give away every single regular season shutout to keep those series clinching shutout games in the playoffs. I will take those any day of the year.
The only reason I bring this up, is because players like their points. Kucherov, Stammer, point. Players love their points.
Yeah.
Goalies like their shutouts.
Like their donuts. Yes, they
do.
Goalies
like their shutouts.
Just like cops, they love their donuts.
I think if there's one goalie in the NHL who's entitled to a couple shutouts here based on what he does for this team night in, night out, it's him.
You're not wrong.
I mean, how many times did you see over the last couple seasons where it's 4-0 or 3-0, and the game's over and they get loose and sloppy
Last 5
and boom,
minutes.
shutout, Scott.
Yep, last 5 minutes
Lots.
of the game. A lot. Like a dozen, I would almost say. Like I would venture to say probably close to a dozen times. And also I think part of that does come to some of this transition of this team being up against the salary cap and having to play maybe some of these younger, inexperienced players, and maybe they're getting more ice time, because we've seen sometimes it's been a Meyer that gave up one earlier, or a Fleury, or even a Cole earlier this season as well, because he's kind of new on the team. So a lot of the times it comes from some of those depth guys on the blue line that give up those shutouts. So
listen, for the record, I want to say I'm not saying this is an issue in the room at all or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that for 1 second. This is just my own opinion.
Right.
He's a great goalie. He is going to go down as one of the greatest. And I just feel he should have come more shots.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not going to the room like, "Oh, you guys are the worst. You guys totally
he
suck."
says it doesn't bother him, and I believe that. I believe that.
Although, I was talking about this the other night or the other day on the internet, and I sometimes, these guys' individual trophies and accolades doesn't matter, especially in NHL more than any other sport. It's much more team oriented. These guys really only care about one thing, and that's the cup. That being said, when you got guys like John Cooper continually getting snubbed for Jack Adams, you got guys like Vasilevsky, who I think totally got robbed when they gave it to Flower a couple years ago. I think he kind of got robbed last year as well.
No question.
No, I think
Coach was right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The new kid, number one bullshit.
Number one BS.
I wear it quite often. And then I also think last year he got robbed by the new kid on the block. And
Igor.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was a toss-up, but I still think you got to. But anyways, clearly where I stand. So maybe sometimes it gets in his head. Like I sometimes I think Coop every once in a while maybe sits back and like in the back of his mind, what do I got to do to win this damn Jack Adams? And maybe he overanalyzes, not like not consciously, but just subconsciously in the back of their mind. We all have that ego. We all have that id. It's absolutely defined.
Well, look, when Vasi, when Vasi won the Conn Smythe, he put it over his head. I mean, he was happy as can be, and he went everywhere with it over his head. I mean, he loved that statue, that little trophy.
Listen, I think, I'll say this about this group is they would not have as much success, as much success as they had the last, not only 3 years going to the Cup Finals, but I don't know, were they on like an 8-year run now?
But 9 years.
But they've really come into their own as a group the last 3 years, obviously going to the Stanley Cup Final, and almost did it again. I mean, think about it. 4 of those games were 1-goal games. 2 of them went to overtime. They almost did, and they had no Braden Point.
They were a 21 away from a three-peat. I would die on that hill.
Right.
They were 21 away from a 3-peat.
I don't disagree with you one bit. He could have turned one of those games by himself, and then it's game 7. But anyway, what I'm saying is this team truly does believe in the team and the big one, the big prize. Individual accolades may come, may go. Yes. Is it crazy to think that John Cooper could go his entire tenure as one of the winningest coaches in terms of hitting 400 wins, 450 wins now, faster than anybody except for Bruce Boudreau in NHL history without winning a coach of the year? Yes, that's crazy. But I think that in that particular case, he's just been guilty of being on a great team where a lot of voters kind of go, oh, yeah, well, I could coach the Lightning too. Yeah, Eddie, get out there. Vasi, you're starting. Cooch, get back out there. That's a generalization, but it's almost too easy. Some voters, I believe, tend to overthink it, and they're going for the story, and the team that came from way down in the standings to up here, and they kind of lose sight of a guy who's been here the whole time just because of the players that he's got. So anyway, all that to say, this team remains motivated and locked into the team goals, and that is obviously the Stanley Cup. And Buckle up, boys. I think if they get past the first round is every team will tell you this. We just got to get past that chaotic, crazy first round. They get past that, it could be on again.
I was watching an interview that you did last year on Donnie and Dolly, the team show, and they asked you what was one of the Lightning's kryptonite, their only kryptonite, and you said defensive breakdown. And when I look into this season, if you look at their one kryptonite, we've talked about it on the show several times. It seems like it's still that defensive breakdown, and something you were just talking about with the giving away the shutouts. Do you still see that being their kryptonite once again? Which it's been an ongoing thing for several years. That's probably been Lightning's only weakness under John Cooper, is the defensive side of it.
Well, I can't remember the timing of this particular interview you're talking about with Donnie there and Dolly.
It was right after Florida Panthers, the Florida Panthers series.
Which one?
When we swept them last year.
All right, so last spring. Fair enough. So bottom line is, do what I see right now? I think we all saw for about a month and a half, all that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Grade A chances here and there. And I think that there's a tendency every once in a while, you see on any given night, the only one who's starting on time is Vasilevsky. And if Vasilevsky isn't on his game for the first 6-7 minutes, it's 2-0. And then you're swimming upstream. Well, it's still scoreless. Then the Lightning get one. Then they get another one. Then they get into their game. That happens a lot. Let's be honest here. But having said that, is it a huge problem right now in this last stretch that they've been on for, I want to say 25 plus games now? No. I think they've found their stride. I think Hedman is shaking off his slow start, his self-admitted kind of sluggish start. These guys have played a ton of hockey. Hedman himself included, with all the minutes he plays on a nightly basis.
He's a league leader every year. Yeah.
Yeah. 71 extra starts, guys, in the playoffs. So last over a 3-year playoff series. So there was a little mental fatigue with some guys. I think they've gotten back to their identity. We all know about the Columbus sweep in 2019 and how important that was to this team getting to the place they needed to be, in terms of not worrying about scoring the 5th, 6th, 7th goals, but to keep the 3rd and 4th goals out of their net.
Yeah.
Instead, just keep it at 2 or less, and then get to our shutdown game. It's impressive when they get to that shutdown game. It really is, and you could see how hard it is. Look at they outshot Dallas 15-5 just the other night in Dallas, a team that I've seen a lot of, and they lean on teams late in games in their barn, and they couldn't get much of a sniff in that third period, and then Cirelli scores, and there you go. We're leaving with 2. So I don't think it's a big issue right now, from what I'm seeing right now. But every team goes through a little bit of ups and downs, but I think the Lightning have gotten back to that formula, or that recipe, as they like to say, that made them so successful, and that is shutting these down, keeping it to 2 or less.
Well, you're out there in my old stomping grounds there in the Rocky Mountains. That's where my family's from. It's out there in the Southwest. Okay. Actually, my folks, half of my family lives there in Denver. So here we are tomorrow. We go against the Avalanche. We have back-to-back with Arizona out at Mullet Arena, which, if there's anything I'm disappointed in myself, it's the fact that I didn't pay attention to this on the schedule and go home and see my family and then go to freaking Mullet Arena this year. And go head-to-head, stash to Mullet, and see who comes out victorious. Total miss on my part. And then we go to Vegas on Saturday for the late game here. Obviously, all 3 of them are late games because they're out west for us. But what are you looking at here for these next 3 games to round out this road trip, starting with such a really great victory, which to me, that's why you said it was the most important victory. That's why, because it's on the road. They finally got out to a good start on a road. they've struggled on their road trips all season, that first game, and carrying the momentum through. So, I mean, they've had a couple of road trips where they won, but they didn't carry that momentum. So,
I will say their last long road trip, right? They got wins out of the gate in St. Louis and Seattle. Started off great, and then Vancouver. So they started off 3-0 on that road trip. But you're right. They're one game over 500 on the road. They have not been a great road team. This is not a criticism; it's a fact. Yep. And for them to get, it's a tough road trip here, as you just outlined, and for them to get that opener in Dallas, that's a big kickstart. Then they get a day or so off before they play again tomorrow night. Avalanche are going to be ready. They're a little shorthanded. I don't think Makar is going to play again. I think they have lost Eric Johnson as well. He was nicked up in their last game at Florida, and I believe he's not going to play as well. So there's another defenseman out of the mix. So we'll see. But the Avs are the Avs. They're still the champs, and they're going to be looking for a measure of revenge, no doubt.
Mile high.
They've still got some great players there.
Elevation.
Then you go to Arizona, and that is one of those games that on paper it's not even close, but it's a back-to-back. I happen to know we get in there very late for a quick turnaround just because of the flight down and the time change, and then the drive from the airport to Tempe, wherever this new rink is. I've never been to Tempe, but we'll find out. And so that's not an easy one. Now back-to-back is never easy. And then Vegas is Vegas. Now they've lost their starting goalie in Dylan Thompson. He's out for a little while. Aiden Hill's played well of late. Jack Eichel is playing better. And it's Vegas. That place is going to be rocking on a Saturday night. And I'm glad they got the 2 points when they did, because you want to come home, as John Cooper, coaches are greedy. They want to come home with more points than games. But to get those two right out of the gate, if when you look at the road ahead, if they can get another one here tomorrow night, that would be huge.
Yeah. In the chat, we love our fans. Stephanie says 3 days of Vegas. What could go wrong? Technically, they have 2 days after, so it could be 5 days in Vegas. They don't play again here till Tuesday, 7:00. So, what could go wrong with an extended road trip finishing in Vegas?
I think these guys know what's at stake. And the whole Vegas flu, the whole road situation. Vegas has been a league now 4 or 5 years, so teams have learned to manage it, shall we say?
Hey, we're not the Panthers coming up here on the playoffs. Let's just put it that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I think everybody will handle that situation accordingly. The time in between the game on Wednesday and the game on what nights are we talking? Yeah, Wednesday night, and then they're not playing until Saturday. So yes, there's time there, but I'm not going to suggest they're going to be running around.
They're probably going to be golfing. If I know those boys, they might.
No, they're gamblers. I've been in Vegas with them twice now. They're gamblers.
It's all right.
The boys are they are some gamblers.
All right. So last call. Vegas, right? I'm calling last call here. Let's get in some last questions here. I'm going to shut her down.
Well, hey, let's switch to the fun part. Let's get you. We've got an extended lightning round for you. We've got some NHL questions, and we got some fun questions.
Just lightning questions, or like fun questions too?
They're fun.
All right.
It's a lightning round.
I got that.
No explanation needed unless you want to give an explanation.
No. It's all good. Let's go. Let's play the game. Away.
So half of these questions, usually I just do 5, and they're kind of fun about the team, about you. I've added 5 more, and these are questions that they asked some of the NHL superstars during the All-Star break. So we want to get your opinion on some of these. So the first one they asked was, what player on your own team, the Lightning for you, is the most underrated or underappreciated? Stumped on the first question.
Alex Killorn.
No. You just made the Stash's day. All right.
Yeah.
Life. That's Alex Killorn with the cup, by the way. That's right. Killer raising the cup back there.
All right. Next question is, should the NHL expand the playoff field?
No.
Good
Nope.
answer.
16 is a lot. I know there's a lot of teams. I know that they've got a lot more teams now, but you got to have some competition to get in, and that would just water it all down. 16 is a lot, and the playoffs already go too long.
Yeah, totally agree.
We can make it
If the
14.
NHL expands again, what city deserves a team?
I would like to say Quebec City because it's they've got this rink there and it's a great fan base and they got some history there. But I haven't really researched this one off the top of my head. What team is missing? Oh wow.
We'll take Quebec City because that was
let's go
probably
with
the
Quebec
number
City
one
off the top of my
answer.
head. Let's go with Quebec City. Would you like to see them?
Clearly
It's go at it again. That would be fun.
Clearly, it's Atlanta. Come on, Dave. Clearly, Atlanta.
They had their that's a transient market. No, they nobody went.
Who was the other one rumored to? Wasn't it San Antonio?
Kansas City was
Houston,
in there for a
of
long
all
time.
places, keeps
Houston,
coming up.
Houston.
Yeah. I've never
I
been.
think,
to Houston, so
I
don't
think
know.
Kansas City would make sense because that's a great fan base, and St. Louis would be a natural regional rival, kind of like we have with the Panthers.
True.
And I think that would make sense as a Midwestern.
They had
market.
their chance, didn't they?
Back in the day, briefly, the Kansas City Scouts.
The Scouts.
Daniel.
All right, this
You're
one's a tough
fired,
one.
Schoolie. Oh, just kidding. Go ahead.
Commissioner of the day. What rule do you change?
Oh wow.
That's a tough one.
The offside by this much rule. Which we got to go back to the
The puck.
intent of the rule was not to be like this, and now it's even more complicated by does he have possession going over the line? That one needs to be revisited. I don't know about abandoned with the technology and the challenge and the whole thing, but it needs to be revisited.
It's the NHL version of what is a catch in the NFL.
Yeah. Or what's the holding?
Basically.
Or
And
goalie interference also, but we'll leave that for
Yeah,
another
there's
time.
that one, but I'll stick with the offside one.
Out of the 3 players that they published their answers, 2 said extending overtime. So I don't know if players are on board with it. Let's make that happen.
I don't know about that because again, now you're getting into longer games, and there are already a lot of games for these guys, and it's taxing. And
and 3-on-3 is way more taxing at the end of the game, right?
Yeah,
because now you're skating way more, and
yeah,
you're covering more ground on your
the
own.
players said that. A couple players said that.
Yeah. 2 out of the 3 that they published on here said that.
All right.
Rock Nelson and Seth Jones.
It must
Go
be
for
guys
it.
that have really low shootout percentage rates,
Well, such,
Exactly.
All right.
or
moving
like
on.
0 chances ever on a shootout, something like that. Not
Who's
that those
a
guys
non-
would get 3-on-3 opportunities, anyways. But whatever. Move on.
Who's a non-hockey athlete that you love?
Hold on here. Bo Bichette.
Really? The Toronto
Blue Jays, shortstop.
yeah. I think he's
Yeah.
from Tampa. Did you know that?
He's
I
from
heard some-
Orlando.
Oh, okay. So he's a Florida boy.
Oh, and Josh Allen.
Second generation. Oh hell yeah, that dude balls.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about Toronto. I hate that they're a rival in our market because you say Bichette, but they have all those second generation players up there, and I think that's really cool. I'm all
it is
about
cool.
legacy
And,
players.
I'm a Jays fan. I'm from Toronto, so
Oh, yeah.
he had an average year last year. I think he's going to be locked and loaded this year.
And I
now
was
the
just a
fun ones.
regular. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. It's
From the
about you,
show,
Howie.
this is lightning round, Stash. Does lightning strike that slowly?
Chain
All right.
lightning from cloud to cloud. From cloud to cloud.
This relates to kind of that last question. Second favorite sport.
Well, for me, it's to watch or play or to watch.
Whatever you choose.
I like him. I like a lot. I'm gonna go with baseball. Yeah, baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah.
All-time favorite hockey player.
Guy Lafleur.
Thumbs up or thumbs down? Rihanna Super Bowl halftime show.
Oh, thumbs up, all the way up for sure. Yeah, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Amazing performance by a woman who is, I don't know how far along she is in her pregnancy, but just going up on those platforms and the showmanship and the visual spectacle it was, major thumbs up.
I like it too. Stash and I were waiting for her to jump from platform to platform. Maybe that's
Can't
not
do
pregnant.
the rest. I don't get sued.
All right, this one's deep too. We've asked a couple people this one. If you were stuck on a deserted island with anyone from the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, who would it be?
Wow. Jeez, who would that be?
The whole organization.
The whole organization stuck in a deserted island. Wow, this is going to be weird no matter what I say here.
Exactly.
And we'll probably take the clip and put it on the internet. So
Right away.
So
I will be at the airport when they come back, like I usually are, and I will play it for the player that you said.
The whole organization, I think Zach Bogosian, because here's why. We both share a love for barbecuing and grilling, and I'm pretty sure he'd be able to kill things on the island. We'd be able to kill.
With
what's
his bare
your job
hands.
on the island, Dave? You just eat.
Yeah,
No.
sure.
You do play by play as he does it.
Yeah.
I think we have an off season for you guys. Let's we'll go down to the Bahamas.
Put them on a
All
satellite. We'll do a satellite phone
Finally,
podcast.
last but not least, maybe the most important question: what is your favorite craft beer that you've been sipping on the last couple months?
That's a good follow up because we talked about that on the first time. Yeah, we talked about it the first time you were on the show. We did a rundown of your only 4 months you'd been here, and you already told us about deep dive.
I had one tonight before the show from Jagged Mountain Brewing in Denver, downtown Denver.
Oh yeah,
Denver. It was called Texas something or other. Anyway, mine is I'm going to go with Vampires and Centaurs from Crooked Thumb in Safety Harbor.
Oh, nice. See, Dave, you can always rely on Dave for the deep dives because when you were on last year and a half ago, whatever, it was Coppertail, and you were talking about the free.
I just
dive.
got here. I was just
they had just opened, and that was definitely a deep dive at that point. Like not a lot of people knew about.
Oh,
Coppertail.
really?
Yeah, no, for sure. It was.
Oh, I thought you were like criticizing me. Like,
no, I wasn't. I was giving you a thumbs up.
Oh,
well, this thumb doesn't go all the way up, but that's a thumbs up for this hand.
I think I said free dive.
You said free dive.
I still like a free dive.
There was a special
but I'm going to go
beer
Vampires and Centaurs from Crooked Thumb in Safety Harbor.
Do you hang out there? Have you gone and chilled and experienced the magic?
Yes.
For 300 times? That's awesome. Me and my buddy go and hang out there for happy hour quite often.
It's a great place.
His office is just across East Lake Road there at the intersection. So we meet up at Safety Harbor quite often.
All right.
Well,
there you go.
There you have it. Hey, Dave, I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you. We love listening to you. We watch every game that we're not at, and we really enjoy when it's you and it's Bally Sports broadcasting the game. You've made quite the impact in a short time here, so we appreciate you and everything you do and the crew there. And we can't wait to hear you tomorrow night, and hopefully we're ringing in another Lightning win.
But not only is it just on the air, what you have done in this community, you are a very good representation for just like the rest of Vinnick and the rest of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the whole franchise. You were, when we did the hurricane relief effort, you were out there with a lot of the STM reps collecting donations. I see you during the playoffs. I usually, for the home games, do the show live from the arena, and I see you when you're walking in and when you're walking out, and you're always posing with the fans. You don't go in any secret door. You don't walk any. I've seen you a couple of times just in lines at the refreshments, and and talking to people and saying hi. So you're a really class act, and we're really glad to have you here in Tampa.
That means a lot, boys. Appreciate it. It's year 3 for me. I'm hoping for a few more. So I love this job. I love the fans have been so nice to me. So thank you very, very much for that. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey,
and listen,
come back.
There's a certain section that says it, so you don't have to. Okay. Just a shout out to a certain section. I know sometimes you want to, but we say it for you. I had to rep in while you were on the air tonight.
Listen, if there might be a questionable call, I'm just saying a questionable call tomorrow night, we want you to say, I don't know, give us a code word, Stash. Valentine's Day related. Cupid's crying.
Well, that's a bouquet of roses right there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's just a bouquet of roses.
Pocket there. That's a good. That's subtle. That's subtle.
That's a little ear
All right.
tug. At the little ear tug, you know what I'm talking about.
All right, boys.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me on, boys.
Hey,
Appreciate it,
thanks for
Dave.
your
Have a
time.
good one.
All right,
Have a good
cheers,
trip.
guys.
And thanks again.
We'll do it again.
All right, there he is. Always great to have Dave jump on his second time.
And you know what?
on the show.
I always feel proud that they stay on our guests stay on as long as they do, and they're so gracious. I know Dave was trying to get out of here, but you know he was still a good sport and stuck around for the extra 10 questions.
You say proud, I say surprised. I mean,
hey, exactly. I'm proudly surprised and optimistic for our show that our guests stay around if only our viewers stuck around as long as our guests did.
So let's wrap this show up. And if you haven't heard, there's going to be
more
a after party moving on, or after every regular.
We're gonna have to change the outro now, right?
The what?
Because with the outro, because that's not it. It's not going to be
Well,
it.
that's it. That's
There's going to be more.
That's it. That's going to ever be replayed anywhere.
But wait, there's more.
The after show, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. It's not. We don't record it for the audio.
Oh no! What happens on YouTube stays on YouTube.
And that's what we're going to go and do over on YouTube. So if you're watching on Facebook, or I think we're on Twitch right now, we'll make sure you follow us on YouTube, because we will be on there in approximately 5 minutes. And we're going to do that for the rest of the season and have a little post-game shindig. Sometimes it might be 5 minutes. Sometimes it might be an hour or two.
Who knows?
You never know.
I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to steal what happened at the end of last week's show. That some guy that was streaming live.
I know School's got a story. We have
the
story of the end of last week's show, kind of as we went off. So meet us over there until next week, or maybe we'll see you in a few. This has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.
That's it for now.
That would be all.